Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into some really different ideas, actually, based on material one of you sent in.
That's right.
It explores this concept of, reptilian jinn and how they supposedly influence the wealthy, the elite.
It's definitely a concept that grabs your attention.
Yeah, and look, we know this might sound pretty unusual to some listeners, but the aim here isn't really to judge it.
No, not at all. It's about understanding the perspective. We want to explore the claims being made in the source material itself.
Exactly. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack what's presented in a YouTube transcript from Sheikh Nurjan Miramati. You know, who these entities are supposed to be, their methods, their agenda, all according to that source.
And the source itself is from the Mohammedan Way Sufi Realities channel. So it's coming from a very specific spiritual viewpoint.
Okay, so let's dive in. The first thing, that word reptilian, it probably makes you picture, lizard people.
Right. And the speaker in the source, Sheikh Nurjan, he addresses that pretty directly. He clarifies it's not meant like that.
Not literal, physical lizard humans walking around.
No. He explained, reptilian describes a kind of category, maybe a breed of jinn.
And jinn, for anyone less familiar, are generally understood in Islamic tradition as unseen beings, right? Made of smokeless fire, living alongside us.
Precisely. Capable of good or evil. But these specific jinn, the source says, when they manifest, they take on a reptilian form. Green, lizard-like. He uses the word shekel, meaning shape or form.
Okay. And what are they like? What characteristics does the source give them?
Well, they're described as having a dirty and violent nature. Two strong words.
Dirty and violent. And there's also that phrase about them feeding on the flesh and bones of mankind.
Yes, which sounds quite gruesome.
But we should probably understand that metaphorically, shouldn't we? Like feeding on negativity or corruption, not actual cannibalism.
That seems much more likely, yeah. Especially given how the source describes their interaction with people. It fits the idea of a negative spiritual influence. They're described as having a subtle nature.
So they don't physically, climb inside someone.
No, it's framed as possession. They possess the human being.
How does that work, according to the source? Is it like what you see in movies?
It sounds perhaps more insidious. Once inside, the claim is they overtake all of their faculties.
All faculties. Wow. So it's a complete takeover.
That's how it's presented. The jinn sees through their eyes, talks through their lips, moves their hands, essentially runs the whole show.
So the person's own will, their personality, is just suppressed.
It seems so. The jinn's desires, its appetites, they become dominant. And this apparently leads the possessed person to act in ways that are, not typically human.
And this idea of possession, this is central to the source's main argument, isn't it? About who controls the ruling class.
Exactly. This is the core contention, that these reptilian jinn are the hidden force behind the power of the wealthy elite.
Okay, but how? What's the reasoning given in the video? How does an unseen jinn take control of, say, a massive corporation?
The explanation offered is quite direct, actually. If a jinn wants control over someone with, say, hundreds of millions of dollars, the source claims they just enter into them and they overtake that individual. Simple as that, from their perspective.
And by possessing the person, they possess everything the person owns, the assets, the businesses.
That's the logic presented.
Yeah.
The jinn gains control over the whole empire, effectively.
And this connects to a larger spiritual picture the source paints, right? About Satan and the material world.
Yes. This takeover is presented as the mechanism through which Satan controls the dunya, the material world. These powerful positions, being CEO or whatever. The source describes them as maqams. Now, usually in Sufism, a maqam is a spiritual station you attain through devotion to God.
Right, a positive thing.
But here, the source flips it. It claims these worldly positions of power are maqams from shaitan, from Satan, rewards given by him.
So getting that corner office isn't necessarily a sign of divine blessing in this view.
Quite the opposite, according to this source. It suggests it's a sign that shaitan has given that individual that maqam. And the possession by these reptilian jinn is how it's facilitated.
Wow. So it's like a hidden layer of influence manipulating global power structures through these possessed individuals.
That's the picture painted. And it goes further. The speaker suggests this influence can actually change people, even physically.
Change them physically? How so?
Well, the source attributes it to the electrical nature of the jinn. Their energy, being close to the possessed human, is said to cause physical alterations.
Like what specifically? What kind of changes?
The example given is hair loss, Loss of eyebrows, body hair, arm hair, leg hair.
Really?
Yeah. The speaker actually compares it to electrolysis, where electricity removes hair. They're suggesting the jinn's energy has a similar effect.
That is incredibly specific. So the implication is, if you see someone powerful losing their eyebrows or body hair, this source might interpret that as a potential sign of jinn possession.
That seems to be the suggestion within this particular framework, yes. It's quite a unique explanation.
Okay. So, if these individuals are possessed, what's their goal? What's the agenda driven by the jinn and ultimately Satan, according to the source?
Well, it's pretty dark. The source states plainly that the agenda is the destruction of humanity.
The destruction of humanity.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's a twist. This destruction is framed as the payment for their worldly success, their fame, their money. It's all part of a deal, apparently.
So the more chaos or destruction they cause,
the greater their reward in worldly terms. Millions of dollars, huge concerts, massive influence. It's presented as a kind of spiritual contract. Sell your soul, gain the world. But the price is contributing to humanity's downfall.
That's a chilling perspective, selling your soul for earthly gain.
It really is. The source also touches on how long these beings supposedly live.
Oh, right, the longevity point. What did it say?
That they don't die for 2,000 years. Immense lifespans. And there was that anecdote.
The electric car guy.
Yeah, someone involved with electric cars apparently joked about being a 3,000-year-old vampire. The speaker in the source questions if it was really a joke.
Adding to that sense of ancient hidden forces at play.
It definitely adds to the overall narrative being built. You know, it's interesting. The source also contrasts these jinn with awliya.
Saints, or friends of God in the Islamic tradition, people believe to have spiritual power too.
Right. And the source acknowledges that saints could theoretically possess people too.
But they don't.
Apparently not. The speaker says there are different rules for them, implying a moral or divine restriction that prevents saints from doing that.
So it suggests these reptilian jinn are operating outside those divine rules, basically breaking them.
That seems to be the implication, yes. They don't adhere to the same spiritual laws.
And how does the source see this all ending? Is there a resolution?
Yes. The discussion wraps up with an anticipation. The arrival of Sayyidina Mahdi, a messianic figure in Islam, who is expected to come and bring down these devils, defeat these forces. So there's an ultimate sense of hope within that specific theological view.
Okay, so let's try and summarize the core claims from this source material. We've got these reptilian jinn.
Unseen beings, reptilian in form when they manifest.
Right. And they possess members of the wealthy elite.
Taking over their faculties, seeing through their eyes, speaking through them.
Gaining worldly power makrams from Satan in exchange for furthering an agenda of human destruction.
And this possession might even cause physical changes, like hair loss, due to their electrical nature. Plus, they supposedly live for thousands of years.
And this whole situation, according to the source, is expected to end with the arrival of Sayyidina Mahdi.
That's the essence of the claims presented by Sheikh Nurjan Miramati in the transcript we examined. It's a very detailed, if unconventional, framework.
Absolutely. And again, we know these ideas are likely far outside the mainstream for many of you listening. Our goal today was simply to understand and relay the content of this specific source material.
Exactly, just laying out the perspective as it was presented.
Which does leave us with something to think about, doesn't it? A final thought for you, the listener. Consider the idea, just as a thought experiment, of attributing worldly power and influence to unseen forces like this. How does that change how you might view society or power structures or even individual actions?
It definitely offers a different lens. And it makes you wonder, what other interpretations could there be for the kinds of phenomena, wealth concentration, seemingly destructive decisions by powerful people that this source attributes to reptilian jinn? It certainly sparks some deep questions about power, influence, and the hidden aspects of our world.